No, I don't. I've never really felt a part of Europe, if that makes sense. I mean, I live in this country, but I've never really felt like I don't know how to explain it, but I don't feel like I'm a citizen of Europe.
Yes and no. Yes, because UK is part of the EU, but not really. It's because we haven't got Euro. So
The fact that I'm a woman, the fact that I'm not white, and the fact that I don't come from the most privileged background.
I think sometimes it's just commitment, you think that you can't do it, motivation, and probably people letting you down thinking that you can't do it either.
not being confident enough. There's not enough opportunities as well for young people as well, and just not living up to my potential.
Probably the difference between private and public schools, because there's a massive difference between the opportunities children get if they go to private school or they go to a state school. So probably close that gap just to allow equal opportunity. So Parliament's not full of people who went to Eton, people who got the same opportunities, but it's more diverse, so it represents the whole population as opposed to just a minute few.
I mean, I just found out about the Erasmus Plus program. I mean, I believe if I ever did that, it would give me the confidence I would need to go out and achieve my dreams and what I wanted to do. So, I mean, with that being said, I think that's a great opportunity for young people to like.
Yeah, what I want to do is travel, so given that the EU allows interconnectivity, travelling from one place to another is made easier by that.
Yeah, definitely, because I am going to be taking a year abroad in university, and I'm going to be going somewhere in Europe where I don't have to pay tuition fees, and in doing so I'll be able to personally develop going to a new country where I probably won't speak the language, and that's an opportunity in itself where you won't get that if Britain weren't part of the EU.
So far from what I've gathered, it's almost like a government, but for everyone within the EU. Like, obviously we live in Britain, we have our government, but it's kind of the government for our government.
European Union, I mean, I learned about it in school. It's just a group of countries together, same policies, etc. I mean, that's it, but I've got a memory like a sieve, so I don't remember.
I know that the European Union is quite complicated in the fact that not all of the countries are in Europe. And I know that we don't really know who our members of the European Parliament are.
Probably not as much as I should, but 28 members, most of them are in Europe. It's like a global institution.
It kind of controls the Tory government. They're not free to do whatever they want, so it's like it kind of caps them. So if we were to leave the EU, I would hate to think what would happen.
The fact that we can go abroad to nearly any country, the fact that we don't have to pay to trade with other countries that are in the EU, the fact that we as British people can settle in other countries without as much of a hassle as if Britain weren't in the EU.
I believe that some of the UK as a whole is being held back by the EU. I mean, that's what I've read from the news as well and seen. So with that being said, maybe we should break away from the EU.
It's restrictive in that there's so many overriding rules and stuff that don't necessarily need to be there. For example, Switzerland, they're not in the EU, but they have such a flourishing economy. And 90% of the economy in the UK isn't based on anything to do with the EU. So if we weren't involved in the EU, then maybe there'd be a lot more jobs with less restrictions and less laws that we don't really need to have. We're allowed different cultures in and out because our borders aren't restricted by just us. So migrants coming in, migrants going out, that affects the culture around us, and the culture around you determines just about everything. When you leave Europe, you're leaving with everything you've got from the place that you live. So it impacts your society, which impacts you greatly.
I think the EU will become more interesting for youth if it started targeting the youth more, because at the moment the problems it does tackle, unfortunately, the youth can't really relate to because we've never been educated about it. So I think in order for us to be interested, we need more information on it so we can kind of decide for ourselves whether it's something we're into or not.
I think if they target a lot on the youth so that we know a lot more about the European Union, then for sure that would attract a lot more youth.
make it kid friendly, child friendly, like young people friendly. I mean, because every time you hear the European Union, there's some people out there who don't know the mumbo jumbo terms and all it just goes to the head and thinking what's going on. If they simplify it for kids, and for young people as well, we can get a better understanding. It should be given in a youth friendly way, so we can use that knowledge.
I think it's not even just the EU, it's just politics as a whole. Once you engage young people into politics, naturally they'll take an interest in the EU because it is really, really impactful on our day-to-day. So maybe making it compulsory for GCSEs or for a year of A-level to just really trigger that interest from young.
The European Union is something that we all vaguely know about. We know what it does, and we know it's like a higher power somewhere. And it's just like this kind of community of countries, but we don't actually know what it does. We don't know a lot about it, and there's not really a way for us to get involved.
I definitely will be voting.
Yes, I will be voting.
I will, because it's important and every vote counts. So remember to vote if you're at the age of voting. It's important. It's important.
100%, yeah, it's extremely important to vote. I actually worked for a few years on voting and registering young people to vote, and a lot of the excuses that I've heard are, oh, my vote's not going to count, it doesn't really matter, I don't really know what's going on. And although those are valid excuses to a certain extent, you have to understand that if 80% of people are saying, oh, my vote's not going to count, then 80% of people aren't going to vote, which means that 80% who, if they did vote, it would have counted. So yeah, I'm definitely going to vote.